Hi, my name is Paul Offit. I'm talking to you today from the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It's June 7th, 2024. In the last couple months, there have been 4 people who have been infected by bird flu. Bird flu, otherwise known as H5 virus. Now, in order to understand what this means and to put it in context, we need to understand a little bit about influenza biology. Influenza, like COVID, has a protein on its surface that binds to cells, especially cells of the respiratory tract. The protein that does that is called the hemagglutinin or H protein. Now, every century, there are 2 to 3 pandemics. And those pandemics are typically caused by H1, H2, or H3 viruses. So even though there's 16 different types of hemagglutinin or H proteins, there's really only 3 types, H1, H2, and H3, that cause yearly pandemics. But now we've had 4 people who've been infected with H5 virus. Does that mean that H5 virus is also about to become a pandemic? And that's something that is reasonable to worry about because there's virtually no population immunity against this virus. Now, H5 viruses have been around for 100 years and to date haven't caused a pandemic, but might they? So let's take a look back at H5 viruses. In the late 1990s, around 1997, there was an H5 outbreak in Southeast Asia. 18 people were infected and 6 died. That's a mortality rate of 33%, which is astronomically high for influenza, where the mortality rate is typically less than 1%. And people expected that there was about to be a pandemic, but it didn't happen. The virus settled down and we didn't hear anything more about it for about 6 years. Then around 2003, and between 2003 and 2005, there were another 97 people who were infected with this virus, about 55 of whom died. So that's, again, a mortality rate of greater than 50%, which is much higher than you would normally see for influenza. And again, people expected there to be an H5 pandemic, but it didn't happen. Now we have 4 cases of H5 viruses, 2 of which occurred in dairy workers. And the reason that happened is that this virus has now been shown to infect cows, which is new. So that worries people. There was a case in Mexico of an H5 infection where the person died. So you have now 1 death among 4 people who've gotten this infection, which is a mortality rate of 25%, again, very high. So should we worry? Should we worry that H5 virus is now about to become a pandemic? And I think the answer is, although we should be cautious and we should pay attention, the odds are it's not going to become a pandemic because it never has. And the reason it hasn't is that in order for this virus to become a pandemic, it has to reproduce itself well in the upper respiratory tract, because then and only then can someone pass the virus to another person. In order for this virus to bind to cells in the upper respiratory tract, it needs to bind to a so-called alpha-2,6 sialic acid receptor. And this virus can't do that. Now, it would have to mutate in order to be able to do that. And that hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened in 100 years, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen. And so we need to pay very careful attention to this virus to make sure it doesn't develop that mutation that allows it to bind to cells in the upper respiratory tract, which would then allow it to reproduce in the upper respiratory tract and make it much more likely to become a pandemic. So I think for right now, we need to keep watching this virus, but I don't think we need to panic yet. However, should that mutation occur, then I think we would need to make a vaccine quickly and distribute it to the entire population because the entire population is at risk. Thank you.